We kick it off with the martial art master, Akari. The man is fighting in the underground scene to pay the medical expenses of his childhood girlfriend. However, it's easier said than done, as his opponent is a freaking bear, proving once again that your little fellow will put you in various unwanted situations just for a little bit of love. That said, the man screams the name of his beloved and climbs the cage to make a point. The point being the power of horny can conquer all, so he easily wins. Of course not. The bear destroys him and then goes down on the poor guy, sending him to hallucination land to a time he made a promise to his girlfriend, or rather best friend, as the poor guy was friend-zoned, unable to say, "I love you." This beta memory ignited a fire in Akari and brought him back to his feet like a demon. He stabbed the bear, swept it on the ground, and curb-stomped it to oblivion. After winning the match, Akari went backstage to collect his money, only to find that they had none to give. And to make matters worse, his friend got sold for two people in suits. The duo inform Akari that the girl is dead. Believing they were behind it, the main man gives the gentleman a taste of his toes, yet the mountain of a man still stands tall. The blonde chick with him tells Akari that the organizers were not planning to help him from the start, and that she was dead either way long before they found her. Akari starts crying, and the man embraces him, telling him he can't change the past, but he can change the future, as they are preparing to go to Mars for a cure to the disease his friend had, which is also killing thousands and millions. Soon after, Akari wakes up in a hospital. The blondie tells him that he was out for a week. She also tells him that during this time they performed surgery on him with a 36% success rate to modify his body for the mission. Meanwhile, downstairs, Captain Kamachi introduces his underlings to fellow German Captain Adolf, who seems calm and reasonable. Now it seems that the team is mainly made up of misfits and people down on their luck, making it easy for them to resonate with each other. Later, the new fam head to a secure place to get further details about the mission. The blondie tells the misfits, "It's no biggie, we just go to Mars, gather some samples, and leave easy peasy." Oh right, there's one problem: cockroaches. These f***ers evolved like Roman gods and now killing anything that lands on the planet. The virus infecting humans with a 100% death rate is called Alien Engine, and due to it not having any strands on Earth, deconstructing and creating a vaccine is not an option. Hence why they need to head to Mars and get it right from the source to examine it. And so here we are on Annex 1 heading to Mars. Akari and the other crew members try to enjoy their time before they land on the red planet. While the girls are talking about their crushes, sweet Eva senses Sheila has a thing for the captain. Embarrassed, she changes the subject and flees to the bath, where they meet a very busty woman. The busty queen tells Sheila to confess and be true to her feelings before parting ways. Back to the boys, they are enjoying an intense game of baseball that gets more intense, sparking an altercation between them. The guy with the cool hair tries to solve it, but gets a fist to the face instead, so Adolf steps in and roasts them back to their seats. Meanwhile, a man enters a bar and talks to the bartender. He tells him, "We are going back to Mars, Professor." It seems the old-timer is a piece of shit, but a smart piece of shit that they need for success in this mission. Unlike the last failed one, back on the ship, while trying to peep into the girl's bathroom, the boys come across a wild roach. Akari stands up against it, but then Michelle arrives and tells him to leave as she suspects more have infiltrated the ship. Her suspicion was on point, as another one was in the main hall swinging people's heads around. Akari and Marcos go to the medicine room to get a serum that empowers the lads, but find that the terraformers are in the room, destroying their medicine. As the bloodbath continues, Captain Kamachi asks permission from the higher-ups to get back to Earth with the roaches, but they refuse as 6 samples are not enough, and tells him to trust his fellow commanders. The commanders arrive and help the rookies to escape, reaching a room where Adolf shows them the art of stomping cockroaches. After killing the intruders, all the commanders regroup, with the rookies assigning them to different teams. The boys say goodbye to each other before splitting up and descending aboard land carriers. Akari was assigned to Michelle's team, while Sheila got assigned to her hubby's team. They managed to land in a safe spot, unlike Team Blondie, which got ambushed by the roaches. And for Team Sylvester, that Queen Busty got assigned to, they landed peacefully, but later came face to face with a terraformer while enjoying the majestic sight of the pyramids. Yes, you heard it right, some cockroaches were smart enough to build pyramids. Back on the battlefield, the horseface roach surprises Team Sylvester with its super speed, taking the head of waifu number 2. Anyways, waifu number 3 is now in danger. A cockroach is trying to get into the vehicle to destroy the serum. Sheila aims for the head and shoots, trapping it in a net modified to withstand 3 times the powers of a terraformer. However, cockroaches are feisty little fucks with some dirty tricks up their sleeves, or rather in their hands, as the roach shot some acid out of his hands at the waifu's tummy. Sheila died in the arms of her beloved, who understood her feelings towards him in her last moments. The captains analyzed the situation, deducing that the roaches have achieved some sort of hierarchy, and as such, they were able to split into groups to hunt the survivors. Back on with the agent, he explains to the old-timer their new methods to fight the roaches, but the old man is still skeptical as he doesn't believe ordinary animal genes would be able to match the brute force of these human-sized roaches, which seems to be the case because when a bird lady tries to make a move, she gets handled by one of the Terra. Luckily though, they still have insect fighters on their side. One of them is Marco's. Marco's enhanced genes are taken from the huntsman spider, giving him great strength, ferocity, and incredible speed that can bypass the roaches, leaving them no time to counterattack, yet he can't bypass the flashbacks and memories of his late sister figure. Marco's remembers his childhood in Mexico. To keep the backstory short, they enrolled in this deadly program because they had nowhere else to go or do. Back to the battlegrounds, Marco's let all of his rages explode against the terraformers, his eyes filled with tears of sorrow for his fallen friend. However, despite being fueled by an infinite supply of rage, like every other living organism, he has to rest, while restoring his stamina and strength. A roach tries to jump him and ends up getting a taste of the captain's spike. Michelle, on the other side, was able to overpower a cockroach with brute strength due to her genes being one of an ant, which she inherited from her father after he undertook the enhancement surgery. The ant species her powers belong to is a species that's suicide via exploding, hence why the terraformers explode when they come in contact with her. Akari, in the meantime, is kicking ass. His powers come from a moth species called Eumata japonica. Through a flashback, we learn he met a patient with the AE virus. The kid made such a good impression on him, he promised to find a cure up there and come back alive to save the little fella. And thus here we are, fighting and taking down the roaches with ease, but keeping them among the living so they can take them back and study their bodies for the cure. After the battle ended, Michelle and Akari headed to a nearby lake to wash up and enjoy the scene, if you know what I mean. Sadly, on this hellish planet, cockroaches will always find you. And this time it seems like the roach is special as he has this Muay Thai wrap thing around his arm and is swift as hell, snatching Michelle down the lack. Alex notices the thing that jumped onto number 2 Division's escape vessel was a strange terraformer with strangely developed legs. When he tried to juice up, the thing jumped, kicked him away, and took control of the escape vessel, shocking everyone on board when it flew away. Luckily though, the boys are all over his roach ass. Upon catching up, Akari sends the fellas flying to go all out because looking at this monster's body, the fight is sure gonna be messy. Meanwhile, underwater, Michelle notices the legs of the bastard groping her belong to a beetle-type bug that can swim in the water. As such, she concludes that the terraformers have tempered with the corpses. Both the roach in the air and Michelle escape, while for the team, Alex swoops in and catches them. However, things are still risky as the beetle roach catches her again for round 2. So with no other option, she wraps her legs around him, and they start sinking for 2 minutes, which is long enough to make fractures in the bug's legs due to the leg lock and the water pressure. Meanwhile, Akari is head-kicking the thick roach back to his place under his feet. If the real kicker was the trick he pulled to save waifu number 1 by tying a thread around her cloth before she sank. When Michelle wakes up, she finds the bastard is still alive, so she pulls his insides from his arm. The thick cockroach lands in front of Michelle, with Akari landing after him. He asks the blondie to stand back, and she says, "No f that," before proceeding to introduce the roach to her foot, successfully confiding the sample. After the battle is over, Michelle goes to check on the ship to see if it's still working. Although the vessel is heavily damaged, they still can use it on land but not in the air, so she orders the boys to change the tires while she changes her cloth, yet Alex and Akari try to take a peek at her. Meanwhile, the number 3 division is still at the mysterious pyramids fighting the terraformer that stole Alina's life. Using his crab powers, the redhead old-timer was able to grow a new arm and push the roach back to his homies who didn't know that they were about to die one by one at the hands of the team. That said, the roaches are taking heads as well, or so we thought. Turns out it was all just a hallucination done by Yvonne's abilities. With the roaches tripping balls, Captain Asimov puts the main roach in a chokehold, squeezing the life out of it while recalling the old days in the army protecting the homeland and his sick daughter. In the end, Division 3 manages to capture 2 cockroaches, then head for the pyramids. Meanwhile, Adolf updates Michelle about their status. He tells them to hurry back to the mothership before the Chinese or the Russian team, aka Team Asimov. Now, before we continue with the action, how about a trip in memory lane to a time when the government jerks experimented on kids? One of those kids was everybody's favorite German, Adolf, who from the looks of it, wasn't enjoying it, not one bit. Back at present, the number 5 division heads toward the main ship in the rain. But then, they unexpectedly get rammed by the number 4 division ship and are grounded. While getting ready to face the horde of terraformers outside, Adolf takes a hit of some questionable white powder that juices him up out of his mind. The dude was sliding between dem roaches, stabbing them one by one and finally electrocuting them all. Meanwhile, Isabelle juiced up to take on a big muscly terraformer with her strong cricket legs, which enables her to move and jump very high. Yet jumping isn't that impressive when facing an absolute unit that was able to evaporate her upper half in an instant. Adolf, remembering his slutty wife, takes his pent-up anger and aims it at all the terraformers in the form of electricity. Soon after, the terraformers' boss appears on top of a hill with another big beefy roach holding a flag. They seem to communicate between themselves, stopping the random attacks. Suddenly, the tables turn as the terraformers attack in a calculated fashion, and Adolf falls. On the other end, Michelle feels something big going down, which it sure was, as when we get back to the battlefield, we see our boy sitting over mountains of cockroach bodies. The boss with the lazy eye orders his lackeys to continue the attacks, but this time the boys come in a clutch, saving their captain last second at the price of their own lives, as the terraformers are not only attacking in an organized manner, but also using weapons against the team. With no one able to fight, things seem too oblique, especially since the captain's heart stopped beating, but it wasn't enough to keep this German down, as his soul still burned with anger and rage. Adolf stood back up like a champ, took his coke shot, started reciting the story of Moses, and went to work easily defeating all the bastards in front of him, before coming face to face with the lazy eye roach throwing his knives at him. The boss bodyguard stopped them with his flag and went down to finish the job. A lightning came down on the bastard after Adolf flicked him the bird. The fierce lightning ripped through the terraformers as if it was an act of God. After giving it everything he has, Adolf collapses. Eva comes to his side. However, the safety felt from this victory was short. Boss music started to play in the background as one ripped terraformer went up on the hill and started stomping on his leader's chest, and thus the terraformer's boss got brought back to consciousness and ordered his units to continue the assault on the helpless group. The roaches opened fire at a very tired Adolf that is being shielded by Eva. The German hope gathered all his remaining power and used it to create a lighting shield, but the danger was not over yet, as the cockroaches threw their guns and resorted to throwing rocks at them. Adolf held waifu's number 3 tight to save her life on the expanse of his. Then the boss came down to take Adolf's body, but Eva stood up for her late captain. Yet what can a weak blondie do against mutated roaches? Nothing. When the roach is about to take the captain, an alarm peep kicks off, and all the terraformers scatter. Turns out, unbeknown to Adolf, the fellas that did the experimenting on his body put a bomb in him, not as a protection against the terraformers, but as an insurance policy, that if he dies, other organizations don't steal the tech within his body. The group ends up going out together with a smile on their face. Even though Adolf couldn't achieve happiness with his family, he was able to find it within his team, who stayed with him for the last second. Back on Mars with Kamachi's team, they are fighting all kinds of hybrid roaches. Marcos almost got close to losing his head if it weren't for his fast reflexes and strong staff. As the battle goes on, the number 1 division spread apart because of the terraformers. In the depths of a dark hole, Keiji is facing a big roach. Training every day hard, Keiji was a boxer, the world's light heavyweight champion, yet with all this success, the lad wasn't truly happy as his mind and heart were with his sick mother. Add to that, his eye problems led him to retire and work as a delivery boy. His mother died soon later, so Michelle went to recruit him after he fell into debt trying to treat his mother. At first, he refused, but then he came around and asked to join on the condition that he chose his animal. So without further ado, let us introduce you to the fighters. On Roach's side, we have a roach that is weevil-based, giving it rock-solid armor. On Earth's side, we have Keiji Onizuka. His animal of choice is the Mandy shrimp and has sharp eyesight in the dark, and with its arms, it can break the hardest shells. The terraformer throws heavy punches, but Keiji dodges them all using immaculate footwork and super eyesight, while delivering crushing blows to the body. However, mid-fight our boy loses focus after recalling his mother, and so he gets caught with a big hook sending him flying, to then get smashed all over the cave walls. That said, it was what he needed to get his head back in the game and deliver a powerful punch to the roach chest, where their controlling organs are located, immobilizing the bastard. After being surrounded by the thread that a terraformer with the powers of a silkworm laid out, Kamachi remembers a girl named Aki. The captain, filled with regret because they had to leave her body behind on Mars after the roaches had killed her during the Bugs 2 mission, swears to get revenge. And revenge is what he gets by shooting the bastard with spikes over and over, every time he remembers his beloved till the cockroach became a vegetable. Meanwhile, as the number 3 division is exploring the pyramids, they find it weird that terraformers haven't come to stop them. As they go deeper, they find a craft that was sent into space before the first Bug mission. Asimov explains that it was the first unmanned vessel launched 100 years ago, concluding that aside from the weapons and chemicals the roaches stole from Bug's mission, they also have a very powerful weapon. Suddenly, a deafening sound that could be heard throughout Mars emerged. Somehow the cockroaches were able to figure out and use nuclear weapons, and like the insects they are, they rose from under the ground and started attacking Division 2. Meanwhile, Division 3 came across maps of how the ships and other tech work. Asimov and Komachi concluded that someone from the Annex Project, AK of this mission, has betrayed the team. Outside, Marcos is saying his farewells to the world till a ball came down from the sky like a bullet, saving him. It was his boy Alex bombarding these shitheads from afar. He then throws Marco a ball with a special gum in it, allowing him to transform and fight from the ground, taking heads left and right. When the Division 2 boys arrive at the scene, they manage to explode the last missile in the sky, then turn and face the roaches. Akari is facing a mole cricket-based roach. These insects can leap high, fly, swim, dig, and have impressive strength. Meanwhile, Michelle is fighting a rainbow stag beetle-based roach, which possesses a very hard exoskeleton and can camouflage. Alex throws her a ball for Jared to use. Speaking about Alex, when he reunited with his homeboy, he learns about Sheila's death. Marcos apologizes to him that he couldn't protect her, so Alex punches him not because he's angry but to knock some sense into his beautifully drawn head. Alex then tells him, "We have no time to cry, remember we came to find a better life." With all the key members on the ground, the fight starts when Jared, using Killer Whale Echo, locates the roach above him. Michelle kicks it, but the fucker is too strong. He holds the hottie in a bear hug. Luckily, this ant has a secret weapon called Venom Breath Personal Space Form. Meanwhile, Akari is losing control and almost went berserk beyond redemption, fighting the mole roach if it weren't for the captain being there to stop him. Michelle tried to follow the dirt digger underground, but the main man stops her since he already sealed the deal with an unbreakable net that gets tightened every time the sucker moves. On Earth, the agent is still talking to the bartender professor, telling him we won't let the backstabbers steal Akari, Michelle, or his research before both heads out. Later, we see the Prime Minister of Japan, Ichiro Haruma, on his way to meet the presidents of the Allied nations to discuss the situation. And the action continues on Mars, with the two main characters surrounded by hordes of mutated cockroaches. Although it seems hopeless, Akari fights on in the hopes to have a bath with his comrade and commander Michelle, an admirable goal if I say so myself. That said, Akari is not only fighting for the bath but also for a kid back home with whom he promised to get the cure for his illness. However, things are easier said than done as Akari is getting clapped by flying roaches, arguably the worst kind of cockroaches. On the ship, the rest of the team is protecting their power-up juice from the roaches, so after Alex helps his boy out, he comes down to help the girls. Komachi asks Michelle where is Akari. She tells him he got caught and that she is on the way to retrieve him. Akari, recalling all his past promises, powers up like a Super Saiyan and starts fighting back, with the team looking at him in awe as he kicks the beefy roach's head off. Soon after, he collapses on Michelle and holds her bosom for moral support. Later, the captains assess the situation, stating their loss being 11 with 1 injured. Furthermore, Komachi adds that their ship engine needs fixing and that they no longer can use the flying systems, meaning they will have to travel to the rendezvous point on land, which will take them about a week. Back on Earth, the politicians have a meeting to send help for the lads on Mars. After the big battle, Michelle and Komachi stand for lookout as they are suspicious that the terraformers haven't attacked in 6 days. On Earth, the leaders are discussing the possibility of having a traitor among them. China's leader puts his balls on the table and tells them we will be taking the wheels now and will be responsible for rescuing the survivors, revealing that they sent a ship to Mars armed with more tactical weapons. The other leaders catch on real fast that he is undermining the mission, and because they have the biggest armory ready, the other nations can't call him out on suspicion of sabotaging the Annex mission, or they might be risking a nuclear war. Meanwhile, war is going to start on the Red Planet when Michelle tells Komachi, "We were able to meet you thanks to an SOS message." Komachi gets shocked since they didn't send a message. Team 3, still in the pyramids, comes across another technology plan for ships, deducing that Team 4 has betrayed them. Speaking about Team 4, they are at the Annex ship placing some landmines to make their job easier if the samples were too much to handle. And with samples, we mean Michelle and Akari. Teams 1 and 2 try to update the leaders down Earth, but the signal gets cut by the Chinese, who tell the teams they have no intention of fighting or killing the group, as they only want the blondie and the hottie, so the heroes get ready to step out to avoid any casualties but get stopped by Komachi, knowing those imposters can't be trusted. And thus, the fight starts with Alex throwing a ball, destroying the shield system, allowing the bird lady to fly over the ship and drop the main captain, who goes to town on those idiots. After kicking the lackeys' sweet candy asses, Captain Komachi turns his attention to their Liu, whom despite his looks and size can move fast. But not as fast as the trained killing machine that is Komachi, who ends up impaling the old man in front of everyone. Back at the pyramids, we learn that Division 3 entered an alliance with Division 4, and they are ready to help them. That said, it seems they don't need help, as Liu is a crafty bastard. He restrained the captain and ordered his men to shoot his legs while he injected him with a cocktail of venoms courtesy of Blue Ring Octopus. Liu tries to use Komachi as a hostage, but fails as they notice the 2 ships leaving, so they kill the captain. Or did they? Turns out it was a hallucination via Ivan's bombs, allowing them to sneak in and take the captain to a safe point using underground tunnels. With the first part being successful, the operation to take over the annex started. Squad 3 sends their ship headfirst at Division 4 defenses to destroy them from within. Then from the dust, Asimov and a selected few of his men entered the battlefield under a new alliance with the Japanese and American forces. Asimov tells Liu he didn't want to cut their ties or change due to their nation's mutual interest in studying Akari and Michelle's bodies. However, their main priority is to find a cure for the AE virus, something the Chinese consider an afterthought. On Earth, the Chinese leader is still running his mouth till the Prime Minister stops his ambitions when he gets a phone call from the agent telling him they secured the professor, aka the man responsible for creating Akari. Likewise, the captains on Mars clash in an intense battle that looks like something out of JoJo. Asimov pushes the old-timer back and takes control of the fight. Leo tries to pull some dirty tricks spitting in the guy's face, yet it's ineffective against the crab tank man. Asimov goes for a takedown, but the old-timer shifts his body weight and drops down to counter with a secret move, sending the redhead flying across the screen. However, the hothead is far from giving up as he charges at Leo, mocking his technique and punching him. Leo wraps his tentacles around his arms, but Asimov dispatches his arms and pins the guy down to the ground to break his spine. Alexander came with a missile threatening to blow up the satellite tower and bring the communications back up to inform the higher-up on Earth about what's happening to undermine the Chinese mission. Squad 4 agrees to cease fire and cooperate by giving control of the annex to Squad 3 to make the vaccine. However, it was too good to be true as one of the Chinese members turned invisible and went for Alexander's head, which she could take if it weren't for a guy on her team indirectly saving him by destroying the vehicle. Suddenly, a green laser appears in the battleground, cutting the lady's arm. The sky turned dark and loud noises emerged. It is the cockroaches laughing at the human on how they are killing each other. This time around, the terraformers' leader is a Dragonfly-based roach with lots of swag, speed, and power, which he used to kill the annoying guy that I was preying on his downfall. He then flew around the squads like no one's business, taking the parts and bodies on the ground for them to later upgrade their commanders. Soon after, the young assassins hit the field for some fun in the sun. These little bastards are fast and coordinated, working together to split the group and take them one by one as a training colloquium. Luckily, the nearby team arrives with the bird lady, who distracts the leader, leaving the young one to die. When the leader lost interest in following the bird lady, all the flying roaches turned their attention to the annex ship, and so they swarmed every inch of the mother ship, which turned out to be a big mistake as they began to fall one by one. Turns out the Chinese ace in the pocket was Hong, a little girl with the powers and abilities of a lethal bacteria, making her a living biological weapon capable of killing every terraformer and human within a certain radius if they don't have a protection suit. So Asimov's team starts falling back except for Alexander, who seems out of it, walking to the enemy. When Liu and his team enter the ship, they step over a trap, knocking one guy out. It was set by Alexander, who is bleeding and contemplating his end, recalling the times he got punched by Asimov over and over, day in and day out, all for the permission to marry his daughter. Needless to say, his perseverance worked, and for the first time, he found himself a family. However, this dream soon came crashing down when his wife got infected by the AE virus. Asimov accepted the conjoined mission with China despite it may dishonor his name and the country if they were caught, for his daughter's sake, as well as his new son-in-law who is now facing the Chinese ace card. Although hesitant to shoot a kid, he pulls the trigger to save his wife and unborn child, yet the shot gets blocked by Squad 4, who disregarded their suits to find him. The invisible lady throws her suit at him, creating a distraction for her to strike. Yet as the lady walks away, Loverboy stands back up with a mutated arm that strangles the chick. In Alexander's mind, if he wasn't able to kill the kid, then he will take with him as many enemy soldiers as he can, a task he couldn't complete due to being overexposed to the bacteria. Hence, he died standing with tears in his eyes and hope in his heart. Liu, seeing the casualties and losses, admires and respects the sacrifice Alexander did for his cause, dying for the sake of love, yet he knows he had some sort of help or weapon as he couldn't break the missile launchers with his abilities alone, hinting that he used Akari's threads. After the battle ended, Liu contacted the squad demanding to hand Akari and Michelle, yet he is the least of their problems right now as a terraformer Paraponera-based type with the same parts as Michelle's father stopped them in their tracks and lifted the ship like it's nothing. In the meantime, Komachi wakes up and Asimov apologizes for siding with the Chinese. Then he informs him about what happened and the things they learned during the battle. One is that the Chinese have developed advanced chemical abilities, making normal life for some soldiers intangible. Two is that they want to study Michelle's body since she is the first person to inherit the abilities, while for Akari they want him because unlike Michelle, who was born with hybrid genes, he was created in a lab and his existence is credited to Professor Honda. Thus, acquiring their bodies means creating a master race of soldiers, empowering any nation possessing it. And so Squad 4, under Komachi's command, prioritizes saving the main characters. Speaking about the blondie and the hottie, Akari wraps his threads all over the roach lifter to stop him from moving. Yet the threads seem not strong enough to hold him, so Michelle joins the fight, holds down the ship, talks some shit, and spins it to hold him even tighter, for the lady to blow some steam. However, ants are the strongest of all the insects, so when she comes close for the last hit, the ant roach just flicks her forehead Itachi style, knocking Michelle to another continent. Akari tries to keep the big boy restrained, but with the help of another roach, the ant-based terraformers got set free. When the modified cockroaches gang on Akari, Michelle arrives for round 2, so the roaches decide to separate them for a 1 versus 1. The first match is between Akari and the snail-eating beetle-based roach that somehow knows few martial art moves. The roach didn't leave any opening for Akari to strike. It used the smoke to land the first punch, which our boy managed to counter and take the terraformer arm only for it to be countered by a gun. It was all a part of the gangster roach's plan. It just wanted to get closer to pull the Glock out of the strap and empty the clip. Upon seeing this, one of the girls contacts Squad 4 and gives them their coordinates to fire a missile at the roaches. Liu fires to stop the terraformer from collecting Akari's body, yet little does he know it was all a plan made by Michelle for the Chinese not only to waste a missile but also to send a smoke signal for Squad 6 to help them. Although the signal didn't trigger, the home team still got something out of their plan. You see, when Alexander was in the enemy base, he rigged the missile by swapping the explosive core with something only the Mothman can pinpoint with his abilities, which is a kick-ass anti-terraformer sword he calls Izumaru. On the other side, Squad 3 leader narrates, there is a theory that suggests an ancient civilization called Raha may be behind the cockroaches' increased rate of evolution on Mars. Ancient texts refer to Rahab as home of the demons. It may have been a planet between Mars and Jupiter. Other theories suggest they had the means for interstellar travel, visited Mars, Venus, the Moon, Europa, and our home Earth, leaving behind on each planet surface indicators of their presence. He further adds another theory that proposes something here on Mars is capable to control evolution, which was the theory posted by Bug's project chief, Commander Alexander Newton, sharing his beliefs. Russian presidents supported him and implemented new mission parameters to find the device. Once located, they were either to destroy it and end the war or steal it and return to Earth so that humanity can experience enhanced evolution as well. He continues, the hypothesis was wrong. They were unable to find proof of any device's existence. In other words, there was nothing to steal, nothing to destroy, there were only old ruins. Back to Akari, he managed to finish the fight with a swift clean cut to the head. While trying to go and help waifu number 1, he fell on the ground, just like Michelle. That said, our girl is a strong, independent ant woman. She headbutted the roach's fist, breaking it, and then delivered a massive blow empowered by a rocket, followed by a kick that he stops with both hands, allowing her to land head kick with the other one. The roach tries to go for a similar kick, but Michelle stops it and breaks his leg, so the challenger says "F it" and shoots the broken leg like a bullet. Changing to close combat, Michelle managed to land all the shots while dodging the terraformer hits at the last second, just close enough for her to sustain minor fractures. Then she leaps and does unnecessary flips to wrap those thick mommy thighs around its neck, driving it headfirst into the ground before collapsing. The bastard, though, stands up with half of his skull shattered, yet Michelle smiles, knowing Akari will restrain it, and restraining him he does. The fight ends on a wholesome note, with Akari wishing waifu number 1 a happy birthday as she just turned 25. Unfortunately, Liu locates their location. After capturing them, the man questions the couple to reveal the location of the rest of the team. When they tell them off, he shoots Akari in the ear and stomps on Michelle's fractured leg, showing no empathy towards them as he considers them not humans, but half-bred insects. He then manages to capture Alex and the girl. Meanwhile, underground, the rest of the team is navigating their way toward the annex using the abilities of a hedgehog girl and the electromagnetic sonar of the killer whale boy. Back on the mainland, the terraformers have laid a trap for Vehicle 1 controlled by the douche, and with no other way, he gets out with sword in hand, cutting down roaches left, right, and center. However, realizing the numbers are too much of a hassle, he ejects everything in the ship as a decoy. Alex saves the girl from the fall without transforming since his serum is still on the ship. With the terraformers closing on them, the girl holds Alex, telling him, "Don't worry, Big Sis will take care of you." She transforms into her skunk form and stops the rushing hordes with the smell. However, they got stopped inches away from the motor vehicle by a sniper shot. The douche also gets shot in the arm, but to the main character's surprise, he doesn't show any sign of pain or humanity as the two lovebirds gonna get bonked. Luckily, The rank 1 officer, Joseph, finally arrives at the perfect time and saves them. He hands the girl a serum for Alex as it might help him heal before he starts flexing his muscles in combat, cutting through enemy lines like butter without transforming. You see, this sex machine was featured on TV under the nickname Speedy Joe, a popular 17-year-old high school senior who earned a gold medal in the decathlon. Afterward, he attended an Air Force Command Academy, graduating with record-high grades. With his master's degree in biology and aerospace engineering in hand, he became an Air Force officer. In other words, what you see here is the peak of the human condition, and the lad sure knows that from the way he poses under the moon after finishing the roaches. Now facing the douche, Joe crosses swords with him while terraformers jump on them from every angle. But brute strength isn't the way, and Joe realizes it, so he disbanded his sword and took a knee while the sniper cockroach shot the douche. To grab a serum and heal, the baldy deduces that he has to kick Michelle out to distract the other, but he doesn't take into consideration the speeding metal ball crashing against his knee, not to mention the enraged Joe Mama with the cat-like super speed, hitting him with an upper hook, throwing him out of the vehicle in pieces, just to get stomped by hordes of cockroaches. The mood swiftly changes when Joe asks Michelle to marry him in front of everyone. Taken back by shock, Michelle resists the urge to tell him no since he saved her team, so instead she tells him, "I will put you on the list of potential candidates," bringing joy to his heart and confusion to Akari's mind. Speaking about confusion, the man is back and is fighting the underground squad, and although Marcos kills him, he turns his head to find another one waiting, so he tells the group to run for it, while he holds him. Sadly though, the Dragonfly terrorist snatched the sweet hedgehog and threw her into a sea of cockroaches. The rest of the group manages to make it inside the annex. Now inside, Keiji confronts the wasp roach. He punches the wall to make it hard for the roach to maneuver during battle, and then starts blasting punches that don't land due to the Dragonfly's exceptional eyesight and speed. However, he manages to land one on its jaw in exchange for his arm. A cheap price he paid to land a killer knockout. Outside, Marcos is still fighting the 3 douches who tell him, "We have a bacteria-type fighter on our side and another battleship with reinforcement arriving soon." Marcos kicks back and starts chatting with the trio. He asks them how their powers work exactly. Bao replies, "I'm a sea squirt-based type, and like the organism, I'm able to reproduce asexually." Bao continued to chit-chat gleefully with Marcos until the guy snapped and broke his neck, since he was determined to stay alive and make a cure for the virus. Marcos dispatched the other 2 easily. Yet one wonders if his dream can become true, as the Roman leader, the one Joe works for, refused to join the alliance with USA and Japan, convincing the German leader to leave the alliance and team up with him, and make a master race of Joseph for both nations. Add to that, the Chinese ship is getting near, and the chances of winning the war on Mars are getting slimmer by the second. Separated from Keiji, the group decides to go on with the mission to acquire the protective suits, while the boxer marches ahead and clears the way. Meanwhile, on another floor, Sweet Hong is not excited to kill Squad 1 and 2, so Bao slaps her, further manipulating her by recalling her brother and mother on Earth. And that is why we refer to this man as douche instead of calling him by his name. While the squad runs toward the storage room, Keiji runs by the Dragonfly, who acts dead to broadcast a message for terraformers that infiltrated the ship, targeting the little girl. The squad sprints to the storage room only to be shocked that the roaches slipped in, took some suits, destroyed the other suits, and killed the clones stored there. Later, the cockroaches run their way downstairs to the girl's location. Welding staff like masters, they fought Bao well, yet as the saying goes, don't bring a stick to a gunfight. One cockroach, however, backstabbed him with its tongue, injecting the asexual man with paralyzing venom due to the roach base being one on the snail. When the roach attempts to inject him with another killer dose, Hong leaps and cut its tongue, saving the douche. Instead of saying thanks, he tells her to go inside, get naked, and start killing, but Hong still can't do it as she is pure at heart. Luckily, a nice guy arrives to save her from the first roach by destroying the ground, while the second roach gets stopped by the invisible lady who seems sweet, but not sweet enough to appreciate Keiji's gesture of throwing her a protective suit. She jumps him, delivering a very heavy blow that misses his heat by an inch, and then continues to beat his ass while he refuses to hit her as Keiji's honor code doesn't allow him to hit women. Keiji's suffering buys more time for Wolf and the others to reach the communication and notify Earth of the dire situation. Joe decides to go and find Liu to stop him, since once he knows the fella's position, he will fire on sight. Thus, he bids his beloved farewell after staring his rival Akari down. With 6 minutes left before passing out from the bacteria, Wolf and the boys are feeling the pressure, but with the support of his team. Wolf continues hacking while a terraformer approaches them. The bastard punches a monitor, alarming the lady outside. They run into the room to find themselves in a 3-way standoff. If one attacks, the other 2 are guaranteed to attack whichever side, so Keiji chooses to destroy the ground despite the hackers not finishing to avoid any team casualties. The lady assesses the situation and decides to team up with Keiji to kill the roach bastard, resulting in a very wholesome scene. The honey badger-based roach makes the first move. Keiji throws a punch, which he slips past it, flipping in the air. The lady uses the momentum from the flip to deliver a headshot, yet it's not powerful enough to finish the job as the roach counters and then starts beating the living shit out of her. Keiji calls out the bastard, allowing his potential wife to stand back up. She disregards her suit to go commando so that they can land destructive blows from both ends, destroying the insides of the terraformer before collapsing from the bacteria exposure. Despair weighs heavily on the crew as chances of rescue are dashed, but a voice from above reignites their hope. Emilia now holds the burden of completing the mission alone, determined that the efforts won't be in vain. Meanwhile, Akari and Michelle are fighting hordes of cockroaches, and although the numbers are too much, Michelle reminds Akari of his promise, and so they fight on, just like Emmy, who concentrated most of her functions on what is in hand, to push just a little further, just like how her crush Keiji taught her. With tears in her eyes, Emilia digs a little bit more before she coughs blood and passes out for a second to restore her lungs so she can call for help. That said, all she could say was, "Help us." Sadly, this message wasn't enough to take action against China, but it was enough to detect two other ships aside from the Chinese ship approaching Mars. Komachi and the rest saved the team by taking them out of the cockroach-infested ship and giving them a bacteria antidote created by Han. Turns out, when Emmy hacked the system, Michelle was able to establish a connection from their vehicle and tell the leaders about China's treachery. Therefore, China's leader phones Liu and tells him, "You are on your own." Liu responds, "I don't need you," which wasn't wrong, since what he needs now is God, as there is a very angry blonde man with a glorious sword in hand and magnificent physics standing over him. The epic saga ends with Akari, Michelle, Alex, and the rest of the squads driving happily ever after toward the sea. Something I wish I could say. You see, cockroaches are a menace, and as such, they have established themselves not only on Mars but also on Earth. Yep, you heard it right. These bastards are living and thriving on Mother Earth. They can use cars, phones, and every other tech. Not to mention, some of them have acquired new powers like electricity. Put it short, humans' last stand isn't on Mars but on Earth, as we see the agent getting ready to throw some hands, ending the series on a massive cliffhanger. So I ask, if a manga reader is watching this, please tell us in the comments how this shitstorm ends.